Um, okay. Yeah. So, like, the next speaker is gonna be Dr. Walker. He is a professor of history, and he focuses a lot on like Peru. So, like, part of his research includes like Latin America's social, culture, and intellectual history. And he's gonna talk about like stuff like colonialism, and he also has a class in Peru and Cusco. So he's also going to talk about like what it's like to work in Peru because he's been working there for a long time, and his wife is actually from Peru. So it's pretty cool. Thanks.
Yeah, all right, awesome. So we'll be sending out all the info for that session as well. And then Lauren, do you want to go ahead and introduce the panelists?
Yeah. Thanks everyone for showing up, and thank you to our panelists. So today we have Spencer, who is our graduate student advisor. We have Andrew, who goes to University of Washington. We have Al, who is a EWB alumni and went to Imperial College in London. And then we have Nick. And then we also, Nick is a surprise guest, by the way, but he went to Stanford for a master's. And then we have Valerie, who will be coming on shortly once she gets done with work. But can we first start off with some introductions? So panelists, if you guys want to say your name, your major, your school, a fun fact, if you have it.
Yeah, so I'm Spencer. I'm a third-year PhD student here at UC Davis in chemical engineering. And yeah, I'm the current graduate student advisor. I got involved with EWB in my undergrad at Montana State University. And my undergrad was also in chemical and bioengineering there. So yeah, I was just excited to get involved here and kind of do some similar things. And yeah, excited to be here.
I can go next. I'm Al. I did civil engineering at UC Davis, and I was in EWB there, and I was part of the Peru project and traveled to La Guaira for 2 summers in a row. And then I went on to do a master's in London at a school called Imperial College London. And I did my master's in hydrology and water resources management. And now I'm back in California, and I'm working for the State Water Board. So working for the state, like in the department that manages grants for water quality and water access problems. And a fun fact is I was born in London. So that was one of the reasons I decided to go back to London for my grad program. So yeah.
Cool. I guess I can jump in. My name's Andrew. I am actually a postdoc now at the University of Washington. I recently graduated in September, so it was exciting. And yeah, I did my undergrad at Montana State University with Spencer, so that counts as my fun fact. Spencer and I know each other from Montana. And yeah, I did my PhD in mechanical engineering and my undergrad in mechanical engineering, although now I do like biomedical research. So yeah, happy to help out and give any guidance that I can.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I did a 9-month course-based master's at Stanford with an emphasis in water resources engineering. I was involved in EWB in undergrad and did 3 trips to Peru. So I'm super stoked that you guys are all here and interested, and hopefully, I can help answer any of your questions. Right now, I'm kind of working as a stormwater resources engineer at a local design firm. And a fun fact is that the summer after grad school, on a trip to Bali, I got 9 stitches in my forehead after getting a face full of reef surfing. So hopefully everything up there is still intact.
Awesome, thank you guys. When Dahl jumps on, I'll probably have her just give her a little intro then. Okay, so we have like 4 questions that I've prepared, and then we will pose the questions that you guys submitted through the online Google form, and then we'll open it up to spontaneous questions and answers. So the first question is, can you describe the program that you chose? Is it more research-based or class-based, and is it what you were expecting?
I can go first. So my program was called Hydrology and Water Resources Management, and it was in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. So it was pretty like engineering based. And it was class focused. So I was in London, like I said. And our year was split up into 2 semesters, and then we took like, I think it was like 6 or 7 classes at a time. So it was kind of a lot, but we didn't meet as frequently as I did in my undergrad classes. So for each class, I would meet like once a week. And I would say we had a lot more work to do outside of the classroom compared to undergrad. So it was very like coursework based. And then, yeah, so for 9 months, we had the classes. It was split up in those 2 semesters. And then the last 3 months was a research period. So the department provided a list of topics that we could choose for our research project. And then we kind of got to like talk to professors and figure out which project like we were most interested in. So yeah, it was class focused. And then the last few months were focused on a research project. And then, yeah, for those few months, it was like a full-time job pretty much. Like I was working 9 to 5 every day on the project. So that was cool. And was I expected? I would say yes. Yeah, like I pretty much before deciding what program I wanted to do, I looked into the classes a lot and like what classes each program offered. So I kind of knew what I was getting myself into and like, yeah, kind of just read about all the course descriptions and figured out if that program kind of like fit what I wanted to learn in a master's degree. So yeah, and I really enjoyed how the last few months was just dedicated to a research project. It was kind of just like a full-time research job. So that was really cool as well. But yeah, I would say it was what I expected.
Cool. I'll jump in. Yeah, I was graduated from the Mechanical Engineering Department at University of Washington, and the PhD program there is a mix of research and classwork. So I would, it's a PhD, so like, there's definitely the emphasis on research. Our particular program, you'd have to take quite a few classes as well, like enough classes that you could entirely get a course-based master's from that amount of credits. So the first, couple years you're doing, you have sort of a heavy course emphasis and like a light research emphasis, and then, gradually transition to like basically entirely research at the end. And I think that's kind of what I expected. I think it would have been nicer to take less courses, because like that really doesn't, from like in a selfish way, it is very time consuming and doesn't really help you in like getting publications and the things that PhDs are like, I think people grade PhDs by in terms of like success metrics. But I really enjoy the program. I think the University of Washington is a great spot to go. So yeah, I don't know if I have too much more to add there.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty similar for UC Davis for grad school as well. I mean, our program in general, like first year and a half is kind of class-based, where you're mixing in research, and then that all builds up to like the culmination of your qualifying exam, where you're basically like proposing what your research project is going to be. So you might have some preliminary data at that point that you've collected in lab. And then basically after your qualifying exam, which I did, about a year and a half, you're completely research based, which is, about what I expected. Whether or not like a PhD is what you expect when you're going into when you end, I think is a different story, because it's like a really big personal growth, like personal development period of your life, I feel like. So.
Yeah, I can hop in. So again, mine was on the quarter system, and it was course based completely. So it was you could choose to do it in however many quarters you like. So I did 5 classes a quarter for 3 quarters. Is based in water resources, but one of the reasons I picked my program was because you had a lot of flexibility in elective courses that you took. So I was able to take a lot of cross civil engineering and MBA and cross civil engineering and law classes that were focused on everything from water resource law to infrastructure, finance, and development. And I would say it was pretty similar to what I had expected. I didn't do really any research that was focused on focused on water resources, but more focused on, I would say, infrastructure development. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty focused on kind of management and less, I would say, less technical outside of the required technical electives.
Thank you, guys. I also want to remind everyone that, like, if you guys have follow-up questions for these, feel free to interject. This could be pretty casual and free-flowing. But also, my roommate Valerie is on now. So Valerie, if you can introduce yourself, say your connection to EWB, your degree, your school, a fun fact if you have it.
Thank you, Lauren. It's nice to see everyone. It's always nice to see EWB people. So myself, I am a current second-year master's student at UC Davis in the Geotech Engineering program, and I did my undergrad at Davis, for those of you who don't know me, and I did EWB for 3 years of undergrad. I think I was secretary, a project lead. I got to travel, and then I did what Spencer's doing now last year. So that's my connection to EWB. I don't know if I missed anything.
I think that was great. And then our first question was can you describe the program that you chose, if it's more research or class-based, and if it's what you expected?
Yeah, at least for the geotech program at Davis, I think it's a good 50-50. I think majority of the students who come in to the program are split between research and classes. So that's really nice. So I did a lot of classes last year, but this year is a lot more research-based. So there's a pretty good balance. So I think it's nice if you're interested in research. Also, research is really nice, like if there's funding for it. So that's been a plus to doing the class and research situation for my program, at least.
Awesome. The other question that I have is, what influenced your decision to enroll in graduate school? How did you choose the type of degree, the focus, and the school?
Did I miss that one too?
No, this is like the first time everyone's hearing it.
Okay. I can answer this one since I'm already unmuted. But yeah, my influence to do grad school, not gonna lie, I saw Nick, Al, I saw Nisha going to grad school, and I was like, that looks kind of cool. And I saw them like getting really excited about getting in, and I was like, wait, like maybe I can do it too, because it was not something, at least when I started at Davis, and this was not something on my agenda, not something I would ever thought I would do. So I think seeing like older peers do it, it sounded more appealing to me, and I was like, wait, I want a job in geotech, but I don't think I know enough to get a job straight out of undergrad, at least the job I wanted, or I thought I wanted. So I was really just curious to take more geotech classes and kind of expand my knowledge and what I knew. I think it's been really good for that. I've gotten to take so many more classes than I did in undergrad. And it's awesome. I love it. So I think I enjoyed the classes in undergrad and was like, yeah, let's keep doing this.
Nice, I can go next. So yeah, as I said, I did civil at Davis, and it wasn't till junior and senior year that I started taking more focused classes in water and environmental studies. And I became really interested in the water classes I was taking. And I think at the end of the day, the reason I chose to go to grad school was just like, I felt like I wanted to learn more about water resources specifically before entering industry, because I knew I wanted to work in the water industry. So I think that kind of fueled my decision to want to apply for grad school. And then I was pretty much, yeah, I only applied to Davis and Imperial College London, which is where I ended up going. So I was deciding between the two. And I think one of the reasons I chose Imperial College was kind of just, yeah, partially just because I wanted to live in a new place, and I love Davis. And I think I would have had a great time if I stayed there for grad school, but I also just really wanted to explore a new city and live in a new place. And I think the international aspect of the program I chose, just like being with people from all different countries, was really cool. So I really enjoyed like, yeah, like having course mates from all over the world and kind of like learning about their perspective of what we were learning about in my classes. And yeah, so yeah, I pretty much chose Imperial partially just because I thought it'd be really cool to live in London for a year. But yeah, not sure if I answered all the questions, but that's pretty much it.
Like you got most of them. You go, Spencer.
Sorry, quick question. How is the rent in London?
Expensive. But yeah, luckily there was like student housing kind of. It wasn't actually affiliated with what I ended up living in with the school, but that made it a lot cheaper. But in general, London is very expensive. And then I moved to an apartment for a few months with some course mates, and we ended up finding a good deal. But yeah, it's like comparable to San Francisco, I would say. So it's just a expensive city.
Yeah, I think for me, the reason I decided to go to grad school, after I graduated undergrad, I worked in industry for about 3 years in Oregon for a pharmaceutical development company, kind of focusing on drug delivery. And working with people from that company, there was a whole range of people that had bachelor's degrees all the way to PhDs. I feel like I just kind of noticed like a fundamental difference in the way that people that had gone to grad school were approaching problems. And I wanted to really understand that like experimental design process a little bit better. And so I decided that probably going to grad school made the most sense. And also I really enjoyed kind of more like the research and development side of the company. So often to get those jobs, having some kind of advanced degree kind of helps you get those. And the reason I chose Davis, I guess, it was a good program. And also for me, location and like proximity to mountains is a pretty big deal to me. So Davis was about as far away as I could move to the mountains. So I think that's definitely an important thing from my perspective is, especially for a PhD, a master's is a little bit shorter time. But for a PhD, like you want to be happy in the location because inevitably you'll get frustrated at some point and you want to have like the outlets that you're used to having or like something to do. So although in the middle of a pandemic, some things are limited. So
yeah, I totally agree with the location thing. When I was trying to decide like whether to go to graduate school or not, you know, so I was really involved in EWB at Montana State, and then kind of in my senior year, I started working in some research labs, and I found it interesting, found it engaging, and you know, decided I wanted to go to graduate school, and then you know, I ended up going to a PhD program, but at first I was like, oh, I'm going to do a master's, and then I started like applying to programs, and then realized that you have to like, you know, it's really hard to get funding for a master's. Not to say it's impossible, but it's just like, it's very hard to get like guaranteed funding for masters because in general, like just in the way that academia works, professors who have grants are just like more motivated to give PhD students funding because they're there for a longer time and are therefore sort of like more productive for a longer number of years. So yeah, I didn't really plan on doing a PhD, but then I started applying to schools and yeah, figured out that that's kind of the way things work. So it ended up great. Like I like doing a PhD. I think the skills that I you know, built were like invaluable. And in terms of like going to University of Washington, I would like parrot Spencer in that it was like, you know, a place on the West Coast. I like am psyched about skiing and climbing and just wanted to be close to those types of things. And also, you know, that was the school that I went to that as probably the best, along with the combination, like in terms of quality of school and combination of location. So yeah, I think all those things should be important. You know, it's like, if you're gonna like move to a place for 5 years, like Spencer said, it's like not worth being miserable, because it's just, yeah, you just like, you'll quit your PhD. I mean, that's the reality of it if you're miserable. So yeah, prioritize happiness.
I think that, I mean, I knew that I wanted to go to grad school, both again to take more interesting coursework and the opportunities that present itself when you get a master's. I'd only applied to Stanford and UC Davis if I wanted to take a more technically focused route, and Stanford if I wanted to take maybe a more management focused route. And I think what really swayed my decision is kind of just wanting to get a new environment, be a little bit closer to the ocean. And I think I was super happy with that decision. Again, lifestyle is super important. Close to surfing, close to climbing. Yeah, I think those are all super important things to take into consideration.
Awesome. I think that was everyone. The next question would be, what are some of your favorite and your least favorite aspects of grad school?
I can go. I would say for me, probably my favorite aspect of it, for my program specifically, like I said, I thought it was really cool being with people from all over the world and kind of just like meeting people I wouldn't otherwise met. And also London is a very, very diverse city, so that was cool. But just like being able to learn with people from other places kind of just like gives you a broader perspective. So I really like that. And also just living in a new place and being able to like explore a new city and meet new people. And yeah, I thought that was really fun. And just like the life experience that came along with that. And my least favorite, I would say for my program specifically, and I would say this is definitely, yeah, maybe one of the things I didn't like as much about my program is we didn't have elective classes. So it was a set kind of like schedule for everyone in my program. So I had to repeat a few classes that I took in undergrad, just because, yeah, and I think that, yeah, most programs probably aren't like that, but it was kind of frustrating because like my program had people from engineering, people from like backgrounds in environmental science, like some people even did math majors. So I think they just wanted everyone to have the same like foundational understanding of the topics we were covering. But yeah, someone with an engineering background, I felt like I was like repeating a few of the classes I took. So that was probably something I didn't like about the program. So I would say that's something to look into, like see if it, yeah, there's electives and like different options of classes you can take, or if it's a set program. Because that was, yeah, something I didn't like, but it ended up being fine. It was only like a couple classes I had to repeat, but yeah, I would say that was something I didn't like about it.
I can go next. I think one of my least favorite parts has been having to write papers. And I think that just comes with research. The research is so much fun. And then when you have to like sit at home and write a paper, it's not as much fun, definitely. But I think, and then something that I really enjoyed about grad school is, and it was kind of a shock at first, because I think at least here, there's a really wide range of people that are in grad school. So like my program, like we've had people who have kids or are married. They're much older. They took a couple years and went into industry and then came back to grad school. So I think like that range of different experiences, I think has been something I've really enjoyed, because I think it's always really cool to learn from people with different backgrounds in that sense. So that's definitely been one of my favorite parts of grad school. That it was kind of a bit of a shock at first, because I was like, wait, not everyone's my age. And some people are going home to their partner, and I'm like, okay. But it was really cool, I think, piece that I didn't expect out of grad school.
Yeah, I think for me, my favorite part is just like the collaborations in the research and things, like really getting to network at conferences and getting to work with people from all over the world. I think I've had like a really supportive advisor that's helped me in my research and helped me like connect with people outside of UC Davis and really kind of like guide me through the research project. At the same time, I think for me, the frustrating part, because you can feel like a little bit isolated sometimes in the same respect, where like you really have to go out of your way to like get the help sometimes. Like for me, like my advisor is one of the associate deans of the College of Engineering, so he's got like a 75% appointment there, and only 25% of his time goes towards research and teaching. So feeling like kind of like that isolated feeling compared to like industry when I was there, where it's like this collective company of like, you know, a couple hundred people that are all working towards this common goal, and everybody wants to like help you out and like keep you going. Just kind of like working through that. But I think all of these things end up making you a better like scientist and a better engineer, researcher in the end. But it can be frustrating at times for sure.
I did research under a professor here at Davis, and so I like pretended to be like a grad student for a summer. And I would second what Spencer was saying, how like when you're in an office, you're working like with other people on projects or getting their opinion and things. And with grad school, I would check in once, or not grad school, my research, I would check once a week with my professor. And then I was like in an office with other people, with other grad students, but like everyone was working on their own thing. And so it did feel like very much I was like pursuing this, and I could ask people for help, but it was just wasn't super collaborative.
Sure. Yeah, I think that can happen. It is totally dependent on the the lab group that you get into, and how many people are there, and it's sort of like what the research environment is. I would say I'll start with like perhaps my least favorite thing about graduate school, and I'm speaking from like the lens of like a PhD program, is that it's like sort of like it's often like very subjective in terms of like deliverables and the things that you need to do to graduate, which can be very frustrating for people. And you hear stories of people who have like 7 years, or in a PhD program for like 7 years. And the reason why that happens is just because, like that you might just have like a tricky advisor, or like, or perhaps it's like a self-driven thing where it's like, I'm cool just like chilling, like being a PhD student and doing research, writing papers. I'm good at this. I like it. I mean, there's no pressure to graduate really. So, yeah, my partner is a physician, and in medical school is very much like, okay, you take these tests on these dates, and then you're like done. Like the day you're going to graduate, the day you enter medical school. So like PhD programs are not like that. So it's just like less structured, and that can be kind of frustrating. One of my favorite parts is it's just like, you're still a student, so you have like incredible flexibility. It's not like you're working like a 9 to 5 where you have 2 weeks of vacation every year. It's like, you're still a student. So as long as you're like a productive, productive researcher, and you're doing well in your courses, like, you can take the summer and like take every single Friday off, and, and have long weekends if you want to. You still have incredible like schedule flexibility and flexibility in life, which is awesome. And at the same time, you get to think about interesting problems and focus on impactful work. So yeah, I would say that's my favorite part of graduate school.
I think my favorite part of grad school was definitely the people that I met there. It was such a diverse group of people, and I was taking electives in a lot of different disciplines. So meeting kids that were focusing on law, or focusing on their MBAs, or focusing on a technical path, and seeing all their perspectives on similar issues, I think was very helpful and very interesting, and enhanced my perspectives on some of these issues related to water resources or environmental remediation. So I thought that was extremely valuable, and I think it made my grad school experience better. Maybe I think the only thing that I disliked, but was my choice as well, was the pace of the program. I chose the program because I was able to complete it so quickly, but that also added a lot of coursework stress, plus the fact that I was going on lots of trips with friends and enjoying myself a lot. So that was maybe not a lot of sleep was had, but I definitely had a lot of fun, and I don't think I would change anything.
Awesome. And then our last prepared question is, what advice do you have for someone who's interested in going to grad school? I think you guys touched on it a little bit with like choosing the location, but if you guys have anything else to add.
Yeah, I would say, as everyone said, like definitely the location is important. You want to be, of course, the program's important, but you want to be in a place or a city that you're going to be happy in, because you're going to be living there for a couple years. And then the other thing I would say is definitely take advantage of the fact that you're a student, because if you're in grad school, like it might be your last, I don't know, like student experience. So yeah, like when I was there, I joined clubs, or I joined this club called the Outdoor Club, which was really cool. Like they did weekend trips to Wales, and like I learned how to climb. So definitely like don't forget that you still have access to like a ton of the resources at that university, like clubs and yeah, doing extracurricular stuff, and take advantage of that, I would say, and balance your coursework and your program with other stuff that you enjoy. And then the other thing I would say, if there is a research component to your program, definitely recommend to be proactive about like, I guess like researching, do a bit of research on what schools you're looking into, and maybe like what professors are in the department you're going to be in and what projects they're working on, and like just be proactive about like reaching out to them and learning a bit more about kind of the projects that are going on in your department, because that's only going to help you when it comes time to like choose a project or something like that. And for me specifically, it was pretty easy. Like they gave us a list of projects and we got to choose, but I heard a professor speak in one of my courses, and his project actually wasn't on the list. I just approached him separately and I was like, oh, I was really interested in like hearing about this project. I'd love to be involved. And then that's kind of how I chose the project I ended up working on. But yeah, I would say being proactive about that can never hurt. So that would be my advice as well.
I think going a little bit off of what Al said and then what Andrew mentioned earlier, I think a big piece too is if you are going to do any kind of research component, making sure you do as much research as you can, but really picking an advisor that you think you're going to work well with. I know sometimes it's tough if you don't know anyone at the school that you're looking into, but maybe trying to see if you can reach out to some grad students that are there already and learning, I guess, trying to see like what different advisors and different professors have different ways of kind of advising their grad students and stuff. And I know at least for me, the match with my current advisor has been really beneficial because I think we've got similar styles of learning and teaching and stuff like that. And I think that's been huge because I've definitely seen people like clash with their advisor, and it can get frustrating because you're writing papers, you're doing research, and it can be really stressful. So I think having a good relationship with your advisor is huge. So that'd probably be my biggest piece of advice that Al and Andrew kind of already touched a little bit on.
Yeah, I was going to say similar things. Yeah, really like your advisor and your relationship with them matters a whole lot more than the research. I shifted into a research project that I wasn't very excited about, and I've come around on it because of my advisor. He's just really open to me like shifting the project in whatever direction I want to go, as long as it fits underneath his funding structure. And he's open to me applying for like all these fellowships to like go to Germany and things like that, and sending me to conferences all the time. So yeah, really like looking for a good match with an advisor that's going to like work well with the structure that you need to be successful in your project is important. And then also like funding is a pretty important thing because that will like impact that structure. So if your advisor says like, okay, like I don't really have much funding or something like that, but like you really want to work on this project and you still think it'd be a good fit, like just be aware that like you may have to TA like a lot more than some other students might or something like that. So yeah, really being upfront. And like Valerie said, the way to do that is talk to the grad students because they have like no motivation to like sway you one way or the other. So yeah, they're always very honest. So going to like any of the visit weekends you can do before joining a program or just like emailing ahead of time is huge.
I'll just, yeah, I mean, it's gonna sound like an echo in the Zoom, the Zoom room here, but I would say just the very similar things, you know, it might seem like backwards, but sometimes like choosing a good advisor is like more important than choosing like the research topic, because, you know, I think that in many ways it's like having an amazing science teacher in middle school, and like that's why you love science. It's the same thing about like research. It's like sometimes if you just have like an amazing like work environment, then you're gonna like automatically like the research way more. You need to be doing the coolest research in the world and just like be in a very toxic environment, and you just won't enjoy it and you won't be productive. So prioritize that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have too many more pieces of advice. Yeah, I guess another thing that Spencer said that I think is really important is thinking about funding, which is pretty complex in academia, but trying to figure out funding early, especially if that's like important for you to like, you know, like have a funded graduate school experience. Thinking about that early and what that looks like is important. Sometimes that comes through like your advisor, who gives you, you know, these, you know, is funding you out of grants that he or she has won in their lab. And, you know, another way could be through like TAs, and, you know, those are pretty often available, but their TAs I think are less helpful, because they're not like, again, they're not like directly contributing to your research, and they're kind of like a big time sink. Another great way is through fellowships. And so those are really important to think about. Well, it's November. If you're applying to go to graduate school, like not this coming year, but the next cycle, then one thing to put on your you know, on the horizon is to look at the fellowships that are offered. One is like the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, which yeah, is an amazing opportunity, and it provides you basically 3 years of full funding, like, you know, $34,000 per year of stipend plus full tuition waiver. So it's, you know, it really provides you a tremendous amount of flexibility and freedom. So, you know, think about those early and really put a lot of thought into your applications.
I think everybody has covered everything with great detail. So I definitely want to hear all of your guys' questions if you have them.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so that was the end of the prepared questions. Sergio, are there any that were submitted through the online one?
Yeah, yeah, so we had sent out a Google form earlier and got some questions prepared for here. So the first one would be like, did you have to go to do research to go to grad school? And if so, like, how did you go about choosing your advisor / PI?
I can jump in, I suppose. So the first question is, do you have to have done research to go to graduate school, or to, I guess, have a good chance of getting in? No, certainly not. You know, obviously, like anything else, it's good to have, you know, interesting things on your resume that help you, you know, stand out. EWB is great for that. I know that that's like sort of a primary reason that I got into the schools that I got into, and that you know, I got the fellowships that I did. I would say in general, it's very helpful if you have some amount of research experience going into graduate school, especially if that's like what you want your focus to be. Especially, just, as a student, it's nice to know that you have like, done research and you do in fact enjoy it. So I think that it's not a bad idea. And I think in general, I'm not sure how it is at Davis, but at least at the University of Washington and Montana State, there's definitely a lot of opportunities for undergrads to get involved, although sometimes it may not be paid. I think it's certainly worth it, even if you have to volunteer. What was the second question? Oh, picking our research advisor. It's a conversation, interact with them. We sort of already touched on it, but I would say the two main things are just like have a conversation with that research advisor and see if you get along just on a human level, and then talk to graduate students and see if they like working in the lab, pluses, minuses, blah, blah, blah. The other thing is, this is kind of like another nuanced academia thing, but what can be helpful is thinking about what stage your research advisor is in their career. So sometimes, like if you get into a lab and you're like working for like an associate or like an assistant professor, so someone who's like very young and still trying to get tenure, not always, but sometimes those professors can be like super gung-ho and like really hands-on, and like every other day they're like scheduling meetings like, what's the update, like what are your results, and so it can be like, maybe you want that, maybe you want like a more hands-on experience, but in general, people who are like pretty early in their career and have not yet got tenure might be like a little bit more inclined to press their graduate students to work very hard. Although that's not like a ubiquitous truth, but something to think about.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think he covered most of it, but definitely emphasize like having conversations with advisors that you're interested in, and like just learning about all the projects they're working on, I think is a really huge part of choosing an advisor. Yeah, I met with my advisor a few times before and just like, yeah, chats with him, and like he told me about his project. So I think that just helped a lot in like figuring out if we would be a good dynamic and if I'd be interested in the project he was working on. So yeah, I've just wanted to emphasize that, but yeah, I don't have too much to add.
I have another kind of question. I guess I'm just wondering, so what would like your average week look like in grad school? I know, especially compared to like undergrad, I'm thinking, because I know a lot of you mentioned going on trips and stuff on the weekend. So I guess what is your time commitment looking like during the week? Like how many hours would you spend in the lab and meetings or?
I think it kind of depends. At least from me, I like the quarters that I was doing a lot more classes. I think it looked a lot more like undergrad because it was just classes all day and then a ton of homework at night, and then mixed in with meetings and maybe a little bit of research. But I think quarters where I've been more research, and like times where I've been more research focused, it's been really nice because it's been a little bit more of like a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Granted that like the experiment going on isn't something that goes beyond the workday, but I think it's been a little bit nicer to like have a balance when you're doing research, because like classes can be overwhelming and homework can take forever, and sometimes you want to spend all your time on homework because you kind of want to do your best, and a lot of work has to go into it. So I think it's definitely been different when I'm taking classes versus when I'm doing research.
Yeah, I'd say pretty similar. Like classwork kind of early on is like more general, like similar to undergrad. And then, yeah, as you keep going, like as you get more and more into your research, you have much more flexibility, like Andrew talked about, which is one of the really big benefits of grad school. Obviously, kind of like you said, it's very dependent on your advisor though, too, kind of what hours you work. Like For me, grad school was much more relaxed, and I sleep a lot more in grad school compared to undergrad for sure. Like I'm not staying up late, like studying or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly, I've seen people in these labs for 18 hours a day and things like that too. Like it's crazy. Like it really depends on like the university and that specific advisor a lot of times. So that's a good question to ask the grad students about in the labs, because like I've heard of people that have had like, this was like an extreme case, like at Princeton, but like someone wanted them to like sign a contract saying like that they would work like a certain number of hours a week and like not take as much vacation and things like that. So grad students are your way to figure those things out.
Sure. I don't really have too much to add. I would say that, you know, yeah, when you're taking lots of courses, it'll feel kind of like undergrad. Once you stop taking as many courses and you have research, then inherently like your schedule is more flexible. And so, you know, if you have a lab group where, you know, your advisor expects you to sort of work, you know, 40 hours a week, then that's what you'll work. But, you know, at least for me, I like to sort of, you know, I was doing sort of an experimental based research. So, you know, sometimes I would just like be on a roll and I just like work till like midnight or 1 or something. And then, you know, not come in the next day until like 2 or so, you know, like you have a very flexible schedule when you're doing research typically. So yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that question. It definitely like depends just like on the program, yeah, on your advisor, on your school, like expectations. So.
Yeah, and just another question that was asked was, so like what opportunities are available to you now that you've done grad school compared to like if you hadn't done grad school?
Yeah, I think, you know, one thing is being able to continue to be in like the university environment is really cool. Like I've always really enjoyed being at universities. I just feel like, you know, the vibe you get here is different compared to like industry. I mean, the other thing is like, if you want to go into any kind of academia, like a PhD is basically mandatory. So it opens up a lot of those doors. In industry, I feel like, you know, masters and PhDs can tend to move up faster. I saw that in my company, where, you know, someone that had been there for like 10 years compared to like someone that has a PhD with a few years of experience could like very easily like be in the same place. So I think, you know, your options for growth can sometimes expand, and especially having those roles more in like a research and development area, like those roles can expand as well. So just some options.
Yeah, I would say it definitely expands your network a bit, and like you have access to the things, yeah, in a university like career fairs and yeah, just networking opportunities while you're in grad school. So definitely take advantage of all of that. And yeah, as far as industry, like, yeah, like for example, a lot of job postings will say like master's preferred, or I don't know, like stuff like that. So I guess it does give you a leg up in applications. So that's a good thing. And then, for example, for my job at the State Water Board, I was able to come in, like they pretty much have like different rankings of engineers. So I was able to come in like at a bit higher, like it was called like intermediate engineer instead of entry level. So that kind of just helped like, yeah, kind of fast forward in my role and give me a leg up a bit, and you get paid a bit more. So that was nice. But yeah, it definitely helps with networking and stuff.
I think kind of along the same lines, like the networking piece, but at least for me, like I think especially like with your advisor and maybe other professors that might be in your program, you kind of, because you get to spend a good amount of time with them over, you know, grad school, throughout the course of grad school, they become advocates. So like my professor is helping me, like I have a specific location, kind of specific job that I want to get. And my advisor's been like a huge help in trying to like reach out and take advantage of his contacts to help find me a job, doing like what I want to do, where I want to practice. So I think that's been really great. So not only making like I think the networking like with professors and even with like other grad students, because they do really, because then those are people you definitely see in industry, especially like somewhere like Davis, people tend to stick in like California and Seattle. So having like those connections is always great, I think, for being able to kind of get that job that you really want versus maybe as an undergrad, you don't get to as much of a pick sometimes, depending on the field for sure though.
I think everybody has covered everything pretty well. Again, just emphasizing that you can leverage context that you've made in grad school to have very interesting conversations with people in the industry that you're interested in. I think that's always helpful when you're in a graduate program trying to advance your career or whatever your interests may be.
I had a slightly different question, if I can jump in at this point, which was, I'm thinking about taking a couple years in industry and then going back into a grad school program. Once I've kind of narrowed down my interests, have you guys been in contact with people who've done that? Do you know what their experiences are versus going straight out of undergrad? What would you recommend?
I would say maybe a quarter to half of my program were people that did that. My housemate that was my housemate that was in my program did that actually. And I think it was almost maybe more beneficial if you have that conviction knowing once you start working that you want to go back to grad school. I think it can be extremely valuable having real world experience before going in. And that's kind of what I saw from the people that came back. They were, I think, more motivated, in my opinion, than myself and the people that had gone in straight from undergrad, just in my personal experience. So I think it's a great option if you want to do it. I would recommend it for sure.
One question I want to add to my previous question. Do you know if they got their companies to pay for their grad school?
I do not know. I only know from some of the MBA and law students that they had their companies pay for it.
Yeah, I think at least for engineering, I haven't seen anyone. That'd be really great if they did. But and kind of going off of what Nick said is a lot of the students, like at least in my program, who had years of experience, it really was definitely beneficial. And I think, going straight into grad school or industry and then coming back is totally personal preference and what fits kind of your path. But there's benefit to both. Like the people who did industry, definitely like when we were doing homeworks or homework problems, like they had already seen some of this stuff out in the field, or they had already kind of seen a report or had heard someone talk about this already, where some of the topics were totally new to me. So I didn't even have a visual to kind of go off of. So that was like one of the things I noticed. And then I think the other tricky part though about doing industry and then coming to academia, and a lot of people talk about this, is like the change in pay. So like you're going to go from getting like a real job with like a real salary to then having to go back on like that student budget again. And I think for some people that can make it harder to then want to go back to grad school. But I think either way, there's no like right or wrong way for sure.
Yeah, the change in pay is not great. But yeah, other than that, the only negative thing I would say about it, because I was in industry for 3 years before I came back to grad school, is that as you get older, your life tends to complicate more. So for me, it was like, okay, now I have this partner with me. I have to think about them and where can they get jobs. Whereas straight out of undergrad, I felt like I had a little bit more flexibility on like, if I want to go abroad and study or something like that, or if I want to like, start my graduate program and then go on a year fellowship abroad, like, those things are a lot easier to coordinate, I feel like. So just something to keep in mind that like I wasn't aware of at the time, because I was thinking in the same frame as you. It's like, oh, I want to go into industry to kind of figure out what I like. Do I still want to go to grad school after that? Which I think was a beneficial time for me still to have that real world experience.
So we're coming up around at 6 o'clock, which is like our planned time to end. I don't know if anyone else has last minute questions. I have like a little poll at the very end, but do any of our students have questions? I can't hear you. Can other people hear? Okay. Might be with your mic, Mohammed. Or you could type it in the chat. Okay. I think I could read his lips, and I think he's saying he's going to type in the chat. In the meantime, any others? Okay, cool. Also for the panelists, I don't know if people have follow-up questions. Oh, cool. Mohammed has one. But can I send them like your email or LinkedIn? What would you guys say is the best way to contact you guys?
Yeah, email, or I could give you my phone number, whatever. I'm happy to like answer any questions or chat with anyone who wants to. So yeah, either one.
Yeah, I'll send Lauren my phone number if any of you are interested.
Yeah, same here. I'm open to texting or email for sure. Yeah, I'd love to answer more questions if things come up, especially in the process.
Yeah, email probably works best for me. So yeah, definitely feel free to contact if you have any questions or yeah, interest in stuff going on at UW, let me know.
Same.
Okay, and then Mohammed's question was, what are the tips you guys have to get funding?
I can start. I received the NSF fellowship, the Graduate Research Fellowship, which is a nice funding opportunity. The tips on getting something like that are, you kind of have to have, so the way it works is you submit a personal essay and then like a research proposal type thing. Both of them are about 2 pages, I think. And then you have 3 letters of recommendation. So, you need to, putting that application together takes a lot of time, and it's, important that it's very good. So it's important to think about, sort of like a central story that kind of ties your research and your personal experiences together to sort of craft a narrative. I'm happy to talk to people about that if they are interested in that specific fellowship. In terms of getting funding from professors, I think that one easy way is to, focus on, like, if you're going to a program that's course-based, it's difficult to get it funded unless perhaps it's through a company. But if it's research-based, that's usually where you're getting your funding, because the research is what funds it. And so, reaching out to professors as much as possible. They're terrible with email, but pinging them as often and showing that you are legitimately interested is a good place to start. Again, you're going to have more luck if you're applying as a PhD student than a master's student. But even if you are a master's student, I would say that, like, once you join the program, maybe you don't have guaranteed funding going in, but like oftentimes what happens is, like, grants come in, like PIs are scrambling, like right now it's happening in our lab where it's like, oh shit, like we need a PhD student now, but all the PhD students are sort of taken. So, like, let's bring in master's students and that's a great way to, like, insert yourself and get some funding. So again, be diligent, be persistent, and you should be able to find funding, if you're, on the ball.
For people interested in a course-based master's, the 2 ways to get funding were being a TA and doing case studies for professors. So you applied to be a TA, and if you had a relationship with the professor that was doing a case study, you could get funding that way. TA-ship was usually 25 to 50 or 75%, and each case study would be like, it would be a direct deposit of like $3,000 to $5,000. That would take maybe a month of work, 2 to 4 weeks, I would say.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And unless you guys had anything left to add, I'm going to launch a poll real quick just so that we can get some information about how you guys found out about this. If you're a panelist, you don't really need to fill it out. But thank you guys all for coming. Really appreciate it. Quick reminders that we do have another speaker session on December 2nd with a professor talking about Peru. I think that's it for announcements. Claire, Sergio, anything else?
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. I think I definitely learned a lot. So I'm really glad to hear from all of you.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, especially since I know you guys have busy schedules.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invite. It's always awesome to see familiar EWB faces.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This
It
was
was
fun.
so good seeing you guys. Hope everything's going well, and good luck on all of your projects and all of your guys' coursework.
Yeah, I miss EWB.
Yeah, thanks
Bye,
for having
guys.
us. Bye all. Stay safe.
Bye, guys.
Bye.